In this video, I'm going to cover the process of configuring Postmaster Enterprise for Microsoft Dynamics GP. In a prior video, I showed the installation process for Postmaster, and that resulted in the icon in the desktop. So I'm just going to launch Postmaster and log in using the Dynamics GP user that I created previously. And the Postmaster Enterprise window that's displayed here is an administrative console. This window allows you to configure Postmaster as well as monitor activity as Postmaster performs batch posting. So for the configuration process, you'll click on the configuration menu and you'll see several options. The first is the license window. And in this case, I'll be testing with the TWO or Fabricam company, so I won't need a license key, but if you have a trial license key or a final license key for your company, you'll paste the license key in here. Next on the configuration window is the email configuration. And these are the settings that Postmaster will need in order to connect to an SMTP server to send email notifications. And these can either be for error messages or for batch posting reports. So I'm going to use a Gmail SMTP server. And the application administrator is the email address for the user who should receive error notifications. So if Postmaster encounters an error, it'll automatically send an email to this person. And this can be a list of multiple email addresses separated by commas. And I'm going to send a test email to confirm that the email is working. And if I go to the Notifications tab, I see that the email was successfully sent. Next in the configuration menu, I'm going to go to the Agent window, and this is where the posting engine is configured, basically the Microsoft Dynamics GP client settings. And the first option we have is polling frequency. This tells Postmaster how often it should check for new batches to post if it has no other batches in its queue. So for testing, I'm going to set this to 10 seconds. So that means when Postmaster doesn't have any batches to post, every 10 seconds it's going to check for new batches. And decreasing this setting does not increase the speed of posting within Postmaster. It simply dictates how quickly Postmaster will check for new ones. And in this case, since we're testing, I'll set it to 10 so that we don't have to wait for very long for it to find new test batches. And this is the DSN server, the ODBC DSN setting used by Dynamics GP. And so this is typically the version of Dynamics GP, such as Dynamics space GP space 2013 or 2010 in the case of 2010. The GP directory was configured during installation, as well as the GP user ID and password that were set up previously and specified during the installation. And so with that configured, I'll click on Save. Next on the configuration menu, we have batch type reporting. If you are interested in having Postmaster generate the posting reports after it posts each batch, you'll go into this window and you'll choose your batch type. In this case, I'll choose journal entries. And you can choose to have the reports delivered via email, or you can have just a subject line, a summary notification that a batch is posted, or you can have the posting report saved to a file, a text file, or they can be saved to a PDF file. And in this case, let's say that I want to save them as a PDF. I'll be asked where I want to save them, and I'll just choose temp. And in this case, it would be saved as PDF to the temp directory, and I can select or unselect report options here. And in this case, let's say I want to have them delivered via email. I can enter one or more email addresses separated by commas. Now, if you change to a batch type that has multiple reports, such as a SOP transaction here, you'll see that I have the option to choose individual posting reports. So let's say that I want to have the reports emailed to me, but I only want to have the sales posting journal delivered. I don't want any of these others. So I can uncheck these other reports so that I don't have those sent. And these posting report options are completely independent of the Microsoft Dynamics GP posting report options. So users can have all of these reports enabled within Microsoft Dynamics GP. So if they post manually, all of these reports will generate within GP. But if a batch is posted within Dynamics GP, in this case, for a SOP batch, only the posting journal will be generated. So I'll save those options. Next in the configuration menu is auto detection. And this is the most common area where you'll be adjusting your configuration. And you'll choose a company, you'll choose a batch source, and you'll choose a filter. In this case, I'm going to choose starts with. And let's say you have 20 different company databases and you want Postmaster to post your intercompany transactions in the GL. So I will choose my ICTRX prefix for those intercompany batches, and I will choose insert. And that's all it takes to create a new auto detect rule. So now Postmaster will look for batches in the Fabricam company that are general entry batches that start with ICTRX. Now by default, these batches will be detected 24 hours a day. So as soon as this batch is available within a company, Postmaster will detect it and post it right away. If you don't want batches posted immediately, you can choose to schedule them. So I'll double click on my rule, I'll choose the schedule option, and I'll say that I only want this posted on weekdays from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. And this means that Postmaster will only detect the batches between the hours of 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. If it detects 1,000 batches at 7 p.m., it will take as long as it needs to post all of those batches throughout the night. It will not stop at 11 p.m. The 11 p.m. cutoff is simply for the detection of new batches. So I'll update my rule, and then I'll create a new rule, and I will choose a payables transaction entry that starts with test. And I'll insert that without scheduling it. So now with those two sample rules set up, I'll close my auto detect window, and I'll next go to the configuration advanced settings option. If you're using batch approvals within Dynamics GP, Postmaster will observe the batch approval rule. However, in some cases, such as the intercompany transactions, you don't want to have to go into 20 different company databases and approve every single batch one at a time in order to allow those to be posted. That would defeat the purpose. You might as well post them while you're there. So in those cases, you can ask Postmaster to bypass the batch approval. And that would only bypass batch approval for the batches that you have told Postmaster to detect and post. The next setting is auto detect retry period, and this relates to errors. If Postmaster encounters an error while posting a batch, it will not attempt to repost that batch for 24 hours by default. If for some reason you want Postmaster to retry that batch sooner, you can decrease this time. Now we don't recommend reducing this to 0 because that means Postmaster will immediately repost a batch over and over, potentially generating many errors. So I'll save those options. And that is the configuration process. So let's do a quick test and see if we got that to work. So I'll start up Postmaster. This process usually takes a few seconds, and there we see a successful start. I'll launch Microsoft Dynamics GP, and I'll make sure to log in as a user other than the Postmaster user. You won't want to be in GP with the Postmaster user or attempt to post batches in GP with the Postmaster user, as that can cause a conflict. So previously I set up an auto detect rule for a payables transaction entry batch that began with test. So I'll go in my purchasing page and I will enter a transaction. And here I will create a batch called test. And I'll enter a purchase amount of 100. I'm going to save this transaction. I'm going to close the batch window, and then I'll pop right over to Postmaster, and you'll see that it has immediately detected the payables transaction entry here. It also detected an old payables test transaction that I had created. And you see that that transaction, or that batch, posted in 1 second, and right away that is posted, and Postmaster is back to detecting new batches. So every 10 seconds you see that it checks for new batches, and then it indicates the next polling cycle. And so in just a few minutes, we have fully configured Postmaster, have it up and running, detecting and posting batches.